Prince William did not stand in front of his top staff like a future king protecting a big organization. He stood there like a dad protecting a scared child. With Princess Anne next to him, the prince shared that Prince Louis had been taken out of all upcoming royal events after feeling very scared and worried because someone kept breaking into safe areas. But the saddest part had not been shared yet. Louis had told grown-ups about the stranger, and no one had listened. Before we learn more about what this really means for the royal family, please subscribe so you don't miss any updates. William put the new schedule on the table and pushed it away right away. Royal duties are the events, practices, and ceremonies that important members of the royal family are expected to go to. Louis would not go to any of them. The future king made this choice final because this was not just a normal break from the spotlight. His son was being pulled out after a stranger had scared him and made him unable to trust the people who were supposed to keep him safe. Anne stood next to her nephew, not across from him. She had read the child's warnings, where he described the same man, the same voice, and the same fear. But officials had said his words were just confusion. The princess could barely hide how angry she was as William told the room that Louis would not be used to make the palace look good. His fingers gripped the chair tightly, but his voice stayed calm and low. Then William shared the detail that changed everything. The stranger had spoken to Louis using a family nickname, one only used inside royal homes. This was no longer just about a man crossing a fence. It meant he had gotten private information that should have stayed inside the family's safe circle. The danger had not stopped after the first time. Palace staff called it a one-time mix-up and told the family the danger was over. Then the same man came back. He crossed into a guarded area and moved toward Louis again, proving that the first mistake had never really been fixed. William signed the paper to pause Louis's duties, put down the pen, and looked at the officials in front of him. He asked why a 9-year-old boy had acted with more concern than trained adults. No one said a word. Anne placed a sealed-inside timeline next to him. She said it held a written list of reports, changes, and delayed warnings. The first break-in, she said, was not the start of the mistake. The cover-up had begun within hours after Louis first spoke. To understand why a scared child was left doubting his own gut, the story must go back to the people closest to him, and to the moment his family realized his fear was not going away. To the public, Prince Louis had always been full of fun, mischief, and youthful energy inside a very careful royal family. But behind closed doors, that happy spark had started to fade. He stopped walking down hallways alone. He asked if doors had been locked twice. And whenever he heard a voice he didn't know outside a room, the youngest child of the Prince and Princess of Wales looked at his dad with the same silent question. Had the stranger come back? Catherine noticed the change before anyone else saw how deep it went. Louis was the youngest child of William and the princess, but he had started showing up at more national events, which made his face easy to recognize. These appearances were more than just ceremony. They put a child in the public eye and made strong protection very important. Now, the confidence he once had was replaced by worry. One evening, Louis stopped near the hallway that connected the family rooms to a private courtyard. He held Catherine's hand tightly and would not move. The princess asked what scared him, but he only stared at the doorway and whispered, "That is where the man knew my name." She felt his fingers squeeze hers, and in that moment, the fear became impossible to ignore. William carried a different kind of pain. Officials had told him the first incident was over, and the prince had wanted to believe them. Now he wondered if trusting the palace system had stopped him from seeing how much his son was hurting. He remembered promising Louis that the stranger could never come back. That promise now felt like a wound. The child had tried to explain everything. Louis described the man's voice, his dark coat, his unusual ring, and the private nickname he had used. His story never changed, but the security team called it a scared memory instead of a real safety warning, which meant they treated his fear as confusion instead of proof. Catherine refused to let these details be forgotten. She made her own private written record, writing down every night Louis woke up scared, every practice he refused, and every time he asked if the man had been found. Her notes showed that each drop in his confidence came right after another unexplained safety problem. Then came the moment William could no longer ignore. Before a ceremony practice, Louis saw his royal coat hanging by the door. He sat on the floor and told his father that royal clothes made it easier for the stranger to spot him. The future king cancelled the practice right away and stayed by his side. Princess Anne soon compared Catherine's notes with the official safety logs. She understood royal protection and the danger of an organization defending itself instead of admitting a mistake. Anne found one date in the mother's notes that was not in the palace report anywhere. That missing date became the first clue she pulled, and it led straight to the event that turned Louis's worry into lasting terror. Every crisis has one moment that later becomes impossible to forget. For this family, it happened during a private practice before a big royal event. Prince Louis was away from his parents for less than 4 minutes. In that short time, the same stranger showed up beside a guarded garden path, called the child by his private nickname, and told him not to warn the guards. Louis ran. But by nighttime, the official report had been changed. Louis had left the practice room with a junior helper when the man stepped out of the guarded pathway. A private rehearsal is a closed practice session where royal family members go over their parts before a big public ceremony. The stranger spoke calmly, used the family nickname, and said William had sent him. Then came the "do not tell the guards." The child would not step closer. Louis turned, ran back to the practice room, and told the helper exactly what had happened. He told the same story to William and 2 safety officers, describing the voice, the order to stay quiet, and the direction the man had come from. His words were clear. His fear was even clearer. William dropped to his knees next to his son. The prince promised that the stranger would never get near him again. While officers closed off the hallway and searched the nearby grounds, Louis held on to his father and slowly stopped shaking. That promise later became a source of heavy guilt because the danger had not really been removed. It had only been hidden. The doubt came fast. Louis heard an official talking in the next room, saying that the excitement of the practice may have confused him. The young prince pulled away from the adults and later told Catherine that speaking up only made people angry. She tried to make him feel better, but the harm had already started. He had lived through the scare, then heard the people who were supposed to protect him question if it really happened, and found the first unbelievable detail in the tech record. A safety camera watching the path had stopped recording for 11 minutes. The problem was called routine maintenance, meaning a normal, scheduled equipment check. But no maintenance team had been allowed to enter that part of the grounds. The written report had something worse. The first version described an unknown adult male. The final electronic summary changed those words to possible mix-up with allowed staff, taking away the sense of real danger without William knowing or agreeing. Late that night, Princess Anne compared the printed draft with the changed report. She circled the changed sentence, took off her glasses, and told her helper that someone had not just missed the danger. Someone had made it sound smaller on purpose. Then Anne saw the approval mark under the change. It belonged to the top palace security head, who had personally told William no intruder existed. By morning, William no longer wanted another explanation from behind a desk. He wanted the man responsible sitting right across from him. There were no cameras, no communication helpers, and no carefully written royal statement. Prince William walked into the private office with Princess Anne, sent every junior helper out, and closed the door himself. Across the table sat the security head who had downplayed Louis's warning. For a few seconds, the future king said nothing. Then he placed the first report next to the changed one and asked one crushing question. Which paper had been made to protect his son? William had called in both the top head and the official in charge of checking home safety cameras. Anne stayed next to him as a direct witness, making sure no one could later change what happened or deny what was said. Home surveillance means the cameras, entry records, and safety checks that protect the private living spaces of the royal family. That system had failed Louis when he needed it most. The prince spread Catherine's timeline across the table, then the first report, the rewritten one, The entry logs and the record showing the hallway camera had shut off during the event. He told the head that palace officials had treated his son like a PR problem instead of a scared child in danger. The head spoke carefully about wanting to stop unneeded panic. William moved his chair closer. His voice grew quiet as he told the man to stop hiding behind rules and to use Louis's name. The future king wanted every person in that room to remember that a child, not an organization, had paid the price for their silence. Anne stayed calm until the safety official called the event a difference in reading. The princess slammed her hand on the table once. She said a child running from a stranger was not something to interpret, and Louis's story had never changed. Her anger cut through the formal words the officials had used to hide the truth. The head finally admitted in a recorded statement during the meeting that he had been told by voice to keep the break-in away from the king's top household staff. That office is the small group of helpers who handle Charles's official choices and private jobs. He said the order was to keep royal events from being upset before the stranger could be found. Then the second cover-up came out. William learned that the same man had been seen near a service door days later. Officials shared his picture only inside a small internal team and never warned the family. Their silence had given the intruder another chance to come back. The prince took the head's palace badge from the table and slid it toward Anne. He stopped the man's access right away, opened the door, and called in the waiting guards. The head argued as he was taken out. Before leaving, he said he had been protecting someone higher up in charge, someone who knew how the stranger learned the family nickname. That claim turned failure into something darker because the nickname had not come from a broken gate or camera. It had come from inside the family's protected world. Getting rid of one official did not solve the mystery. It uncovered the system behind it. Princess Anne followed the entry trail while William stayed with Louis, and what she found was more upsetting than an unlocked door. The intruder had gotten in using info from staff schedules, private family habits, and old visitor passes. Someone had let bits of protected info stay out in the open, and top people had chosen silence instead of admitting how unsafe the royal home had become. Anne took charge before another record could vanish. She froze every temporary badge and asked for the original entry files, instead of summaries made through the broken chain of command. Temporary passes are short-term badges given to staff, visitors, and workers who need to enter for a short time. In the wrong hands, they could turn yesterday's permission into today's threat. Senior royal helpers pushed back almost right away. They said the princess did not officially run the Prince of Wales's household and could not check every department linked to Louis. William ended the fight with a signed order, giving her full power to investigate. He would stay with his son. She would follow the mistake wherever it led. Charles got the truth alone. The king read the original report, then the changed one, and set both pages on the desk without speaking. His silence carried shame. His grandson's fear had been softened with careful words so the monarchy could look steady. That mattered because the system had protected its image before protecting a child. William walked in moments later and refused to comfort the organization. The king asked if sharing the truth right away might hurt the public's trust in royal safety. The prince said trust had already been broken when officials chose Louis's silence over the truth. Charles looked back at the reports and understood that a delay would now become part of the cover-up. Anne found the source of the nickname inside an old household archive. An audio recording from an internal family project had the private name used for Louis. The archive is a staff storage system that holds recordings and papers, never meant for public use. That file should have been deleted. But weak rules had left it open to people far outside the family circle. The entry trail showed more. The intruder had once worked for an estate maintenance company and knew about staff doors, shift changes, and family movement patterns. His old knowledge let him move close to safe areas without looking out of place at first. Charles took off his reading glasses and signed Anne's bigger power. The king told William that no event, anniversary, or reputation was worth making Louis pretend to feel safe. For once, the monarchy chose the child before the calendar. Minutes later, a safety officer came in with a matching photo. The same man had been seen outside another royal home, The palace had finally started acting. But for Louis, the new steps came after fear had already changed every doorway, every uniform, and every unfamiliar face. The gates were made stronger, passes were cancelled, officers were moved. But none of these actions could bring back what Prince Louis had lost. Safety used to be something he took for granted. Now it was something he kept checking over and over. When William told him he would no longer go to upcoming royal events, Louis did not feel happy about the break. He asked if he was being taken out because the palace believed the stranger, or because the palace still did not believe him. William felt the question cut deeper than any blame. The prince told his son that several officers had been suspended, outside workers had lost their access, and every path used by the whale's children was being changed. A protected minor is a child whose safety needs the highest level of official care. These changes mattered because the old system had let danger get too close. While adults argued over words, Louis looked down and asked if missing the next big event meant he had done something wrong. His father answered right away. The mistake belonged to the adults who ignored him, not to the child who had spoken up. William said it again and again until his son finally looked up, but the doubt did not fully leave his face. Catherine found the deeper wound later that night. She went into Louis's room after he fell asleep and opened a drawer under his folded clothes. His small ceremony badge was hidden inside. The princess held it in silence, then asked William how long their son had linked royal duty with danger. He had no answer. The palace finally changed its words. Officials stopped calling the events minor problems and started calling them repeated targeted break-ins involving a protected child. The new words carried legal and safety weight, but they came too late to erase the fear already living inside Louis. Investigators then found a small item near the service door. It had a phrase linked to the same private family archive that had leaked the nickname. Through a written evidence report, the team confirmed that the item had been left on purpose. The stranger had wanted Louis to think he knew the family very well. The next find was even worse. A duty boss admitted in a recorded discipline talk that he had waited 43 minutes before sharing the second sighting. He was afraid to argue with the head's earlier decision. That delay gave the intruder enough time to leave the grounds without being caught. William faced the safety team without hiding his anger. He told the fired officers that being loyal did not mean protecting senior co-workers from being embarrassed. Being loyal meant believing a scared child fast enough to stop the next visit. That night, Louis asked to talk with Princess Anne alone. The request surprised William, but he said yes. Away from officials and formal reports, the youngest prince finally shared the sentence he had been too scared to say in front of a crowded room. Princess Anne came in without a helper, closed the door, and sat at the same height as her great-nephew. She did not ask him to start over from the beginning. She only asked what the stranger had said the last time. Louis paused, then shared the words that changed the whole investigation. The man had told him that his father would not believe him because important adults had already decided he was wrong. For Anne, the message showed planning, control, and inside knowledge. Anne kept the room free of uniforms, recording gear, helpers, and officials. She wanted Louis to be in charge of the talk instead of feeling questioned by another palace system. The princess knew that institutional pressure means the fear that happens when strong groups make a person feel smaller than the truth they are trying to share. For the child, that pressure had already become part of the danger. Louis had picked her for a reason. He remembered hearing that Anne had once faced danger without losing control, and he thought she would understand why he ran. The young prince also thought she would understand why he stayed quiet after. Every unfamiliar adult now sounded like someone offering comfort before finding a reason to doubt him. The hardest truth came slowly. Louis said the stranger had told him that William would ignore his warning because palace officials had already decided the first meeting was only in his head. The child was afraid that speaking up again would let his father down. He had not just been squished by the intruder. He had been tricked into feeling alone. Anne asked if she could bring William into the room. The prince came in, knelt next to his son, and listened without cutting in. He said he had trusted the wrong adults after the first break-in. but he had never stopped trusting Louis. The future king said those words over and over, until the child understood that the mistake belonged to him and the officials, never to the boy who had raised the alarm. That sentence uncovered the leak. Only people inside the safety team knew officials had called Louis wrong. Through a written investigation talk, a staff worker admitted talking about the softened report with the former outside worker. The staff member thought the man wanted info about coming back to work, but hid the contact after seeing his face from the second sighting. William took out his official phone and set it outside the room. He told Louis that no royal schedule, ceremony, or public event would start again until the child felt ready. Louis reached for his father's hand and quietly asked him to stay until he fell asleep. The prince stayed. Anne left them together and took the statement to the investigators. The inside source had been found. The intruder had been found. Now she and William faced a different problem. When the truth finally left the palace gates, the country's reaction was not curiosity. It was anger focused on one scared boy standing alone against a system built to protect him. By sunrise, the story was no longer stuck inside royal walls. The country woke up to a front page showing an empty ceremony chair with Prince Louis's name on it. Under the bold title were the words, "He warned them twice." Outside Windsor Castle, families gathered quietly instead of cheering. Several kids left handwritten cards near the fence. The most common message had only 5 words. "We believe you, Prince Louis." In that moment, the palace's mistake became personal. Buckingham Palace put out an official statement confirming Louis's temporary break, the repeated break-ins, the suspensions of officials, and a full independent review. An independent review is an investigation done outside the broken safety chain, so those to blame could not judge their own mistakes. The announcement mattered, because the monarchy had finally admitted the danger was planned, repeated, and could have been stopped. News shows focused less on who the intruder was and more on the adults who had lowered the child's warnings. The question spreading across the country was harsh. Why did an organization built on duty only listen after the harm was impossible to hide? Parents recognized the fear right away. Louis was no longer just a prince in a palace crisis. He was a child who had spoken clearly and still been brushed off. William watched the news with Catherine, feeling more uneasy. The prince was worried the attention might make their son's worry worse or turn his pain into a public show. Then he saw parents defending Louis instead of asking for him to come back to royal duty. Catherine reached for his hand as the future king fought to hold back his emotion. For the first time, the public was asking the palace to leave the child alone. Anne faced a colder reaction inside the royal household. Several helpers said the statement showed too much weakness and made the monarchy's safety mistakes look bad. The princess turned them down right away. She said weakness did not come from admitting mistakes. It came from making Louis carry the pain in silence while adults protected their jobs. The police soon caught the former outside worker near a property linked to his old estate job. A written evidence list showed copied entry maps, staff schedules, and notes tracking family movements. The find proved the visits had not been random. The man had studied the household and planned for many meetings. Punishments came fast. The safety head was fired for good. The staff worker was let go, and the duty boss started formal discipline steps. A new rule made sure every warning from a protected child would lead to an immediate top-level review. At Windsor, one young boy asked an officer if Louis would get the cards. The officer promised they would be delivered safely. The crowd clapped, not for the monarchy, but for the child. The investigation had led to arrests, firings, and reform. But the final answer would come from the choice William made for his son when no cameras were watching. The palace expected Prince William to say when Louis might come back. Instead, he took the question away. There would be no deadline, no symbolic event, and no pressure hidden as tradition. The youngest prince would only come back when he felt safe, and only if he chose to. Next to him, Princess Anne confirmed that every official who had ignored, changed, or hidden the warnings had been taken out of the child's safety chain. The palace had finally chosen honesty over looking good. William confirmed that his son's break from royal duties would last as long as needed. Royal duties are the ceremonies, events, and public jobs expected of royal family members. Medical help, family peace, and Louis's own feeling of being ready would decide if he ever came back. The future king would not let a calendar become another source of fear. Anne made the changes permanent. Every safety worry from a royal child would now need an immediate top review. No single official could lower a report. Unexplained camera failures would be checked from the outside, and expired worker passes would be fully removed. The princess understood that rules only mattered when they protected the weak, not the powerful. William later admitted his guilt during a private talk with Catherine. The prince said he might never forgive himself for trusting the first official's promise. She reminded him that being a father was not measured by never being fooled. It was measured by what a father did once the truth was clear. He had chosen Louis over looks, and that choice had changed everything. Louis started taking back something the intruder had stolen. With both parents next to him, the child went back to the hallway he had been avoiding. He stopped near the garden path and squeezed William's hand. Then he kept walking. The fear had not gone away, but he no longer carried it alone. The finished review shared its final answer in a written report. Officials had known enough to act, but they protected the calm of the organization over Louis's steady story. Their mistake was not knowing. It was refusing to give a child's words the weight they deserved. William then took the ceremony coat off its hanger. The prince folded it himself, put it inside the closet, and told his son it would stay there with no pressure, no expectation, and no date attached. Anne protected the monarchy by refusing to protect those who had failed. William changed what royal duty meant by saying no crown, ceremony, or public event was more important than a child's safety. Louis no longer had to show he was brave by pretending to be afraid. The intruder was gone. The officials faced consequences. The safety system was rebuilt, and his family believed him without a second thought. Silence had kept up appearances for a moment. Truth brought back trust. Prince Louis lost his sense of safety because adults ignored his voice. But he began getting it back when his father and Princess Anne pushed an old organization to stop defending itself and start defending the child it had failed. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in the next one.